The digital world, it runs on data. Your data, actually. But have you ever stopped to think about the invisible rules, the guardrails, that control how all that data gets used? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at the ethics that shape the tech we use every single day. So let's dive in.
Think about it. Every single time you use an app or just browse a website, you're creating data. And that data, it's like gold for researchers who are building the next big thing in tech. But, and this is a big but, it brings up a really important question. Who's actually making the rules here? Who's making sure all of this is being done the right way?
Right, how do we stop this from turning into some kind of digital Wild West? Well, it all comes down to something called the ethics of innovation. It's basically a formal rulebook, a code of conduct that tells researchers how they're supposed to handle all this powerful stuff. And let's be super clear about this. These are not just nice-to-have suggestions. Nope. It doesn't matter if you're a researcher at a big university or working for a giant tech corporation. When it comes to handling data from the cloud and networks, these ethical principles, they are absolutely non-negotiable. Okay, so where does this whole ethical framework actually start? It all begins with you, the individual, and one core foundational idea: your consent. The very first pillar of this whole thing is what's called informed consent. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. It means researchers can't just sweep you into a study without you knowing. They need your clear, explicit yes. And this is the key part: that yes only counts if you are fully informed about what you're actually agreeing to. So what does fully informed even mean? It's way, way more than just ticking a box on a long form you didn't read. Researchers have a duty, an obligation to spell it all out for you. They have to explain the purpose of the study, lay out any potential risks, tell you exactly how your data is going to be used, and, this is a big one, how they're going to keep it safe. Okay, so getting your consent is just step one. It's the starting line. Once you've given that permission, the next major principle kicks right in, and this one is all about protecting your identity. We're talking about data privacy. The main tool they use to do this is something called anonymization. You can think of it like a digital deep clean. It's the process of scrubbing the data, stripping out any little piece of information, your name, your address, anything that could tie it back to you. The whole point is to turn you into just one anonymous data point in a massive sea of data. And this isn't just for trivial stuff. This applies to some of our most personal, sensitive data. I'm talking about things like network traffic logs, which can show everywhere you've been online, or your social media data. That's obviously super personal. Even how you use cloud services can paint a pretty detailed picture of you. All of that stuff, it absolutely has to be anonymized. All right, so we've got consent, we've got privacy, check and check. The next principle is a real classic. You probably heard it before because it's actually borrowed from medicine and now it's being applied to tech. It's this simple but profound idea: do no harm. So you can picture this like a scale, a balancing act. On one side of the scale, you have what's called beneficence, the idea that the research has to be designed to create some positive outcome, to do some good for society. And on the other side, you have non-maleficence, which is a fancy way of saying researchers have to actively try to prevent any negative fallout, any potential harm. Okay, let me give you a really solid example of this. Let's say a researcher finds a brand new way to break into a computer network. That discovery is incredibly powerful, right? Well, their ethical duty isn't just to shout it from the rooftops. It's to handle that knowledge with extreme care. They need to make sure it gets into the hands of people who can build better defenses, not into the hands of people who want to cause chaos. Okay, for our last section, we're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to look at two ethical duties that go beyond just you and your data. These are about the integrity of the research itself and, believe it or not, its impact on our planet. First up, transparency and integrity. This is really the foundation of all good science. It's pretty straightforward. Researchers have to be totally 100% honest. Honest about their methods, honest about their results, and honest about any potential conflicts of interest. Like, who's paying for the study? Yeah, to put it bluntly, no fudging the numbers. No manipulating the data to get the result you wanted. The results are what they are. It's all about an honest search for the truth. Full stop. Now, moving on from the integrity of the research, there's another impact we have to talk about. A really physical, tangible one that's becoming a massive ethical issue in the tech world. And that's the environmental footprint of doing the research in the first place. Right. Because every time a researcher runs a massive computation or trains some super complex model on servers, that uses a ton of electricity. And that energy doesn't just come from nowhere. It has a real-world cost. And we're now at a point where researchers have an actual ethical duty to think about that.
And there are a couple of areas where this is a really big deal right now. You hear about these huge AI models all the time, right? Well, training them is incredibly energy intensive. Same thing for a lot of blockchain research. So in fields like these, being energy efficient, well, it's not just a technical challenge anymore. It's an ethical one.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the whole shebang. We have informed consent, that's you knowing exactly what you're getting into. We have privacy, which is all about protecting your identity. Then, do no harm. That's the balancing act of maximizing good and minimizing bad. Transparency, making sure the science is honest. And last but not least, environmental impact, remembering that all this research has a real-world energy cost. So, these 5 principles, these are the guardrails we're working with right now. But, technology is moving at lightning speed, especially with AI. And it really leaves us with one big critical question to chew on. Are these rules that we've just talked about, are they going to be enough to handle whatever comes next?